Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel, The Zone of Anatomy, and today we are going to discuss about one of the most important topic of the anatomy as well as the neurophysio, that is ascending tracts. Since it is very vast topic, so I have divided it into two parts, that is ascending tract, and tomorrow we are going to discuss about the descending tracts. So we have already discussed the division of the central nervous system, how the generation of impulse takes place, how the conduction of impulse takes place. Then we have seen in neuromuscular junctions and everything. So for the same, I have put the link for the similar videos in the description box. You can see over there. And for the extra study material and some MCQs that might come, we have another Telegram group channel, so you can join that also. The link for the same is put in the description box. So moving forward, these are a few basic terms which we all need to learn. That is, what are the tracts? Tracts, when we talk about the definition of the tract, we simply say the tracts contain the bundle of the nerve fibers, therefore they are known as the tracts. So the tracts are the groups of the bundles of the nerve fibers that carry motor or sensory impulse from the brain to the spinal cord, or the vice versa. Since we have two type of tract, that is ascending tract and the descending tract. Ascending tracts carries from spinal cord to brain and descending from brain to spinal cord. Therefore, we write as vice versa. What is gray matter? We already have discussed. Gray matter contain neuron as well as neuroglia cells. Neurons are the structural and functional unit of nervous system, and neuroglia cells are the supporting cells of neurons. Coming to the white matter. Why white matter is white matter? Because it contains only the axons fiber and not the body. That is why it is white color white color, and the white matter only forms our tract. Coming, the elements of the gray matter, white matter is association fibers. What are the association fibers? Those tracts or those white fiber tracts that connects from antero-posteriorly. We see tracts from upside down, we see right, left, we see anterior, posteriorly. So association fibers connect tracts from anterior to posterior. What is commissure? Commissure are the tracts that connects, right to left part. Suppose we have one second. Like from right to left. This is known as the commissure. And when we talk about association fiber, we talk about like this, antero-posteriorly. So therefore, these are association fibers in blue and commissure fibers from right to left. Then we come, what are the receptors? We say receptors are the biological transducers that converts the energy, the form of energy. So these are the receptors. Coming to what are ascending tract, we have already discussed that the ascending tracts carry sensory information from the body. What type of sensory? Like pain, crude touch, then we have sexual sensation, then we have temperature, pain. These are carried by the ascending tract. Whereas descending tract carry motor information. These carry sensory, these carry motor from arms, brain, and down to the, as I say, it carries from brain towards the down, and it carries from spinal cord to the brain. Moving forward, what are the ascending tracts? When we talk about ascending tracts, okay, so we divided the ascending tract into two parts, that are conscious and the unconscious. So when we talk about what are the conscious part and what is the unconscious part, then that the conscious tracts, it usually comprises of a dorsal column medial lemniscus, and the anterolateral system. We'll see what these systems are broadly in further slide. And the unconscious comprises of spino-cerebellar tract. So ascending tract, we have this divided into two on the type of information that carries, that is conscious information and unconscious information. Conscious by the dorsal column medial lemniscal pathway and anterolateral system, and unconscious by spinocerebral tract. Just remember, in ascending tracts, we need to learn these three tracts very briefly, and these are only the main ones which we need to learn. Basically, dorsal column medial lemniscus is for fine touch, for vibration, for proprioception. Okay, so let's discuss what is this DCML. Coming to dorsal column medial lemniscal system. So we have discussed that its basic principle is to carry the sensations such as vibrations, proprioception, and basically when we talk about two thing before discussing it, that one is when the fibers move on the same side, this type, the fibers moving on same side, it is known as ipsilaterally. Whereas when the fiber crosses, for example, fiber crosses as this point and then it go like this after crossing, it is known as contralaterally. So we use these two terms, that is ipsilaterally and contralaterally. So do not forget what are these. Now, when we talk about dorsal column system, the main thing which we need to remember is one, first the components of it. The components of dorsal column is first is fasciculus fasciculus gracilis, and second is fasciculus cuneatus. The gracilis is not present over here, like it is this part. It is not mentioned, but we have two nucleus and two fasciculus which we need to learn in DCML, that is cuneatus and gracilis. Then the type of nerve fibers it is carrying is basically myelinated and large. The sensation, or we say the speed of transmission, is very rapid. Then when we come to the spatial orientation of the nerve fiber, the spatial orientation is also very high. And when we talk about the side of the body, so side of the body is transmitted on the same side. So let's proceed it further in what is this dorsal column root, sorry, dorsal column medial lemniscus is all about. As we have discussed already that it has two nucleus and fasciculus, that is gracilis and cuneatus. So what is its pathway? We just need to remember what are the pathway of it. For example, we get the stimulus. Okay, once we get the stimulus, the axons of the neurons in this dorsal root ganglia, here we have the first order neuron. They enters the spinal cord, or we want to do one thing. First, we discuss what are the orders of neuron. Then we'll see that it will be easy for you to understand. When we talk, when we talk about the order of neurons, so the first order of neuron takes information from periphery to the medulla. As you see, it carries periphery to the medulla. Second point, in this we have two type of sensation. One is signals from the upper extremity and the sensation from the lower extremity. When we talk about sensation from the upper extremity, it is concerned with the fasciculus cuneatus. When we see over here, it is concerned with our upper extremity part. When we talk about lower extremity, the nucleus and the fasciculus which is engaged in this, it is fasciculus gracilis. So these are the most important MCQ point questions to remember. When we talk about the second order neuron, so the second order neurons where it is terminated, like first order neuron get terminated at these gracilis and cuneatus nucleus. So the fibers then receive the information from here and then it delivers to the third. So basically the second order neuron works as the intermediate connection between first and the third order neuron. So it is located between medulla oblongata So here in second order neuron, the fibers move contralaterally. What is mean by contralaterally? That the fiber crosses at the place of medulla oblongata and then moves. So the crossing is known as the contralateral movement. Then the third order neuron, the function of third order neuron is to transit the sensory signal to prime from the thalamus. Where the second order neuron terminate is in the thalamus. Third order neurons carry from the thalamus in the form of ipsilateral and gives fluid back to the primary sensory cortex of the brain. So this is what we need to learn, that second order neuron come here. So second order neuron takes entire information from here contralaterally and then dump it here. Um, from the thalamus, then this third order neuron convert the information to the primary cortex. So we say first order neuron come here, the first order neuron receive information to the medulla oblongata, then these crosses over, then it moves, second order neuron moves contralaterally, it moves and reach to the thalamus. From thalamus, it moves to the cortex. So this is the complete pathway of DCML, which we have learned what are first order neuron, second order neuron, third order neuron. All the entire MCQ points I have mentioned in the slide. So just read it once. So the pathway which we have studied is that axons of neuron in the dorsal root ganglia, first order neuron enters spinal cord. Okay, so it enters in the spinal cord. Once it enters in the spinal cord, it ascends through the dorsal column on the same side. We see on the same side it is going. Then it synapse here. You can see here this point of synapse. Here they used to synapse. Once they get synapse, then they then they crossed over. Once they synapse with second order neuron in the nucleus, gracilis or cuneatus depends upon for which we are talking the upper extremity or the lower extremity, and then these second order neurons are divided further. So when the second order neuron is going upward, it has divided into two groups. First is external arcuate fibers and second is internal arcuate fibers. What is external and internal? So external arcuate fibers, what we see in this diagram is basically our internal articulate fibers. Okay, so in internal articulate fibers, it crosses this midline, ascends to the medial lemniscus, then goes to medulla, midbrain, pons, and then it goes to internal capsule, and then finally it get terminated here in the post-central gyrus of primary cerebral cortex. So this part, what we are seeing is basically our internal arcuate fibers. So the pathway is very similar, but it is different from external arcuate fiber. Like till here, the second order neuron, the pathway is similar for both external and internal. Then further it is divided when we talk about external. So in external, we see one is ventral group and dorsal group. So from when we talk about externally we talk that whether it is ventral group or the dorsal group, both go in the cerebral hemisphere. But for the when we talk about dorsal part, okay, so the dorsal part goes on the same side, the sensation goes on the same side, whereas for the ventral group it crosses and it goes on the opposite side. So these two are the two changes. But for what we see in the diagram is our internal arcuate fibers, because they go from the midline and then they passes our pons, medulla, so medulla, then pons, then midbrain, then corona radiata, and then finally it goes to the cerebral cortex. So here is the complete pathway which we have discussed, that axon of the neuron in dorsal root ganglia, first order neuron, enters spinal cord, ascends dorsal column on the same side we see ipsilaterally, Then synapse with the second order neuron in the nucleus gracilis and cuneatus. When we talk about gracilis, when we talk about cuneatus, we have already seen when we talk about cuneatus, it is for upper limb. When we talk about gracilis, it is lower limb. Then the second order neurons divide into two fiber group, that is external arcuate fibers and internal arcuate fibers. So after external arcuate fiber, I have discussed that it divides into two. We talk about in the two group, ventral group and dorsal group. When we talk about ventral group, both the fibers, whether it is ventral or dorsal, go in the cerebral hemisphere, but for the ventral, it goes opposite side, and on dorsal, it goes on the same side. Coming to internal arcuate fibers, I have already said when we discussed about that in the previous picture, that this picture is concerned with the internal arcuate fiber that is crosses the midline, then it crosses our medulla, then here we have a pons, then midbrain, then it terminates with a third order neuron in the thalamus, and then here somewhere we have our internal capsule. After internal capsule, we also have corona radiata over here. So after crossing internal capsule, then it crosses corona radiata, and finally it goes in our primary cortex. So here is the pathway. First, the second order neurons which are divided. So for internal arcuate pathway, it crosses the midline, ascends as the medial lemniscal, then it goes in our medulla, then pons, then midbrain, then it enters the thalamus and synapse with the third order neuron. Then we see that it goes in internal capsule, then corona radiata, and finally terminate in the central gyrus of the, or we say that it terminates in the somatic area of the postcentral gyrus, and the type of sensation dorsal column medial meniscus is concerned is fine touch, vibration, proprioception, tactile discrimination. We discriminated in our sensations, and sensory pathway for superficial reflex. So basically DCML is concerned with the sensory superficial reflexive. So I hope this is clear to everyone. So moving forward, when now let me define what is this tactile discrimination is. It is basically the ability we discriminate information when we touch or we sense. That's it. We discuss first order neuron goes ipsilaterally on the same side, second order neuron crosses, and so this crossing over and then moving is contralaterally, and then after crossing the fibers moving upwards is known as third order neurons. Like goes up here, we have third order neuron and the fibers go like this, that is ipsilaterally. The type of fibers we see large and myelinated when we talk about DCML, then it transmitted impulse fast, and on the same side we see, because third order neuron goes ipsilaterally after crossing of the information. Then we have fasciculus gracilis concerned with our sacral, lumbar and lower six, and cuneatus concerned with our sixth thoracic and cervical, that is upper extremity. So this is complete DCML part which you need to remember, and nothing is going to come outside from this because it consists of our anatomy part also as well as our neurophysio part also. Moving forward, as we move forward, we are talking about what is our anterior lateral system. When we see the division in the first slide, we see that the ascending tract is divided into conscious part and unconscious part. So the conscious part has two divisions. One is DCML and another is this one, that is anterolateral system. In anterolateral system, again we have a two tracts. Two tracts are anterior spinothalamic tract and lateral spinothalamic tract. So move forward, when we talk about what is this anterospinal tract is. So when we talk about anterospinal spinothalamic tract. Remember, we are concerning with thalamus when we talk about this tract. But when we talk about unconscious part, we talk about cerebral part. So do not mix these two things. Here we have our thalamic part, whereas there we have a cerebral part. In anterolateral, we have concern with thalamic part. So what is its pathway? Its pathway is very simple. Our axons come in the first root, then it enters the spinal cord here, synapses with the posterior horn cell on second order neuron on the same side, then it is moving upwards. First order neuron crossing over takes place. Sorry. Okay, crossing over which we see it takes place. Then once the crossing over takes place, then like the second order neurons crosses midlines and goes opposite side and ascends as the interior spinothalamic tract. And one more thing you need to remember, if we talk about, if the anterior spinothalamic tract goes through anterior column, then it is known as anterior spinothalamic tract, and when they go as a lateral column, then we call it as lateral spinothalamic tract. So here, this part, this one is our anterior because it is going from the front side, and lateral because it is going from the lateral side. So we say that the second order neuron crosses over here, crosses midline and goes upwards on the same side, or we say anterior part. So it is the anterior spinothalamic tract, and when it crosses and goes from the lateral side, we say it is lateral spinothalamic tract. So we have two tracts over here. Then both of these goes in our similar medulla, then pons, then it goes here in medulla, then pons, and ultimately here it gets, after going from midbrain, it goes into the thalamus, and the second order neuron synapse with the third order neuron. Here our third order neuron synapse comes, and in then it goes ventral posterior nucleus of the thalamus, and then it goes forward, that is through internal capsule, corona radiata, and it terminates in the cerebral cortex, the pathway which we see in the internal arcuate fibers. So this is the complete tract, but the only thing which we need to remember, in anterior spinothalamic tract, it is concerned with crude touch and a pressure sensation. Why opposite side? Because it crosses. Then we see that the lateral spinothalamic tract is concerned with pain, temperature, tickling, and itching, and sexual sensation. So this, if you are studying from the point of view of physiology, so you need to remember which tract is concerned with which sensation. And if you are dealing with anatomy, then you need to know the pathway that it is going from where it is going. Like it goes pons, then it midbrain, then it terminate with a third order neuron in the thalamus, then it goes in the internal capsule, then it corona radiata, and then it terminates finally. So you need to know this complete pathway. So here is the complete pathway of anterolateral system, that is axon in the dorsal root ganglion, first order neuron, synapse with the posterior horn cell on the same side, then second order neuron crosses midline and go to the opposite side and ascend as the anterior spinothalamic tract. And when we talk about lateral, then it goes from the lateral column. Then in medulla, these tracts form spinal meniscus. So it forms the spinal lemniscus. So which tracts form spinal lemniscus? It is basically two tracts, these two tracts, that is lateral and anterior spinothalamic, and one tract that is spinotectal tract, which we see, which is not important much, so I haven't mentioned a word. So it is basically a three tracts over here, then pons, then midbrain, then second order neuron synapse is third in the ventral posterior lateral nucleus of thalamus, or you can say the second order neuron synapse in the nucleus of thalamus, then internal capsule, then corona radiata, and then finally it gets terminates to the cerebral cortex. So this is our anterior spinothalamic tract. complete information which we have, or I can say it is complete spinothalamic tract information. Moving forward, we have last, that is spinocerebellar tract, that is concerned with our unconscious part. So when we talk about this, it is to we just need to remember the names of the tract in this, and the only we need to remember is the name of the tracts and what are the spino-cerebellar tract. So when we talk about the cerebellum, then we'll concern with these tracts. Right now, we are just need to remember the names, that is, it has one is posterior spinocerebellar tract. As the name suggests, it connects spinal cord to the cerebral part. So it has posterior spinocerebellar tract. If it is posterior, we again has an anterior spinocerebellar tract. Then we have a cunocerebral tract, and we have a rostral spinocerebral tract. So these are the what fasciculus cuneatus, fasciculus gracilis. We have seen what are they concerned of. We have already seen like upper extremity and lower extremity part. Then we see what are posterior spirocerebral tract. That is this one. Then anterior spirocerebral tract here. Then we have a lateral spinothalamic tract and anterior spinothalamic. Just remember this diagram. It can help you to memorize the spinocerebral tract. Coming to the part which is one of the most important, that is what is the pain pathway. Now let's discuss what is the pain pathway and a touch pathway, because these two pathways are very important when we talk about the neurophysiology. So the pain pathway, how this pain pathway is going, just focus your entire concentration over here. You will just remember everything in just 1 second. Suppose we get mechanical, electrical, or thermal, or chemical pain stimuli here. Once we get the stimuli, then the stimulation of the pain receptors is started. Okay. Then these afferent nerve fibers that are taking the sensation. It has a fast pain and it was carried by the fibers, that is A fibers. And it has a slow pain by C fibers. So you need the MCQ which come here is what type of fiber. A is taking sensation, that is fast pain or a sharp pain, and what type of pain the C fibers is taking, it is poor or it is slow. So when we talk about here, so these two MCQs are important, this sharp pain and this localized or slow poor localized pain. Again, now it enters here. Once the stimuli come, apparent nerve fibers consider what is it is slow or sharp. According to that, the fibers come into play. It goes here in the dorsal root ganglia, enter into the spinal cord. Okay. Now, it synapse with the posterior horn here, the dorsal horn, with this second order neuron. Okay. It synapsed here with the second order neuron. Here it is coming and then it is synapse. Once it gets synapse with the second order neuron, then second order neuron crosses the midline, ascend as a lateral. You can see it is a lateral spinothalamic tract. We see this is spinothalamic tract. What type of tract it is? It is lateral. Lateral spinothalamic tract. Once we see it is second order neuron come into play and it is like the second order neuron crosses the midline, ascend as a lateral spinothalamic tract. Then spinal lemniscus goes into the medulla, then pons, then again that midbrain, and then synapses with the third order neuron, and ultimately the internal capsule, corona radiata, and again the story begins. The only thing which we need to remember is these fibers, the type of fibers here, that is sharp fiber. The A fibers take sharp pain and the C fibers taking a slow pain. The detail is given in our yesterday's video, that is function or organization of the nervous system, you can see before seeing this video. So it is very clear what type of fibers is taking what. So in pain pathway, you need to remember only this part. In every story, whatever we have seen in the DCML or we see in the anterior-spinothalamic tracts, we just go anterolateral tracts, just go through that. The entire story is just same. Then coming to the another, that is a touch sensation. It is also one of the most important part, the touch sensation. So for the touch sensation, it is similarly that from the dorsal root ganglia are like sensation cup, it enters into the spinal cord. So it has basically a two. If it is a light root touch, then it synapses with the second order neuron, crosses the midline, ascends as anterior spinothalamic tract, ascend as medulla, then pons, then midbrain, and then spinal lemniscus, and then terminates. Then that internal capsule, and the same story is going on again and again. But if we talk about the fine touch, then the thing is changed. That is, it is concerned, like for light root touch, it is concerned with anterior spinothalamic tract. But when we talk about the fine touch, then it is concerned with our fasciculus gracilis and the cuneatus. And then the same story continue. That is the synapse with the second order neuron in the nucleus gracilis and the nucleus cuneatus, you can see over here. Then it ascends as the medulla, then pons, then midbrains, then medial lemnisci. You can see here we have pons, medulla, then medial lemnisci. Then it terminates in the third order neuron in the ventral posterolateral nucleus of the thalamus. Then it goes in the internal capsule. Then it goes in the corona radiata, and then finally it gets into the brain, and the brain receives the information what to do. So this is the basic information which everyone needs to know. But the only thing you need to remember DCML, what are the tracts, what is the pathway. Just remember the pathway of the DCML, you can crack any tract. The entire story is same, just only fibers in a pain. If for the touch, you need to see what is the pathway for the light root touch. That is, it is concerned with anterior spinothalamic tract, and this one, what is the pain is concerned with lateral spinothalamic tract. So these are the only MCQs that can come in your examination, and nothing more to worry about the ascending tract. This we have already concerned what is gracilis, what is cuneatus, so no need to worry more. And now here is the description, whatever I have explained you so far, like posterior spinothalamic cerebral tract, then cuneo-cerebral tract, anterior spinal, then rostral spino. Anterolateral system is slow myelinated. We see slow. Why slow? It is. Then speed of transmission is slow. Transition the opposite side. Then crude, pressure, pain, and whereas in our DCML it goes on the same side. So one MCQ can come from here. And the sensation transmitted is very, 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 very important from the point of view of examiner. So just read over this, and it is the only content which you need to run in ascending tracts of the spinal cord. So guys, that is all from my side on this topic. If you like the content of my video, do like, do share, do subscribe, and yeah, put your reviews in the comment section, and do not miss to solve the MCQs put in the Telegram group, or all the extra information or mind maps or mnemonics put in the Telegram group, so you can perform better in your exam. So we are going to discuss descending tracts in our upcoming lecture. Till then, we have discussed the ascending tract and all the basic of the nervous system that is important. Just go through all the lectures. You find it very, very helpful, and it is easy. I hope I make it easy for you, this ascending tract. If you have any query, do put in the comment section, or you can message me on the Telegram as well as. So that's all from my side. We'll meet in the another lecture. Till then, take care. Bye.